Have you ever felt that the very things meant to connect us are actually pushing us further apart? That chasing likes and validation is somehow hollowing you out? That all this information is leaving you feeling less wise, not more? These aren't just abstract thoughts. They're the quiet, unsettling questions creeping into the edges of our modern lives. We're drowning in connection, yet so many of us feel utterly adrift. We're bombarding with perfectly curated lives, polished versions of reality that make our own messy, beautiful truths feel like they're not enough. We're pressured to present a version of ourselves that's palatable, always performing, leaving this huge gap between who we show the world and who we really are. It's a disconnect that feels unsettling, right? The promise of this digital age was freedom, right? Amplified voices. But for many, it's become this gilded cage, trapping us in comparison, envy, and this nagging feeling of never quite measuring up. We're told to optimize, to perform, to be on all the time, leaving no space for that quiet introspection where real self-understanding actually happens. This isn't about ditching technology. It's about understanding how our environment is sculpting our inner world and the huge price we're paying for it. Get ready for a serious mental reset, an unflinching look at the architecture of our modern disquiet. What if I told you there's a subtle form of control at play? Not one that says no, but one that whispers yes to your potential, your desires, your self, but in a way that serves the system. This is what philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls psychopolitics. It's a system that pushes you to perform, to optimize, to achieve, and in doing so, it turns you into your own taskmaster. This is our digital age amplified. Those algorithms curating your feed, the endless notifications, the pressure to maintain that online persona, it all builds this constant, low-level hum of anxiety. We're encouraged to engage, share, consume, produce, creating this draining feedback loop. This relentless demand for engagement leads to what Han calls a society of fatigue. It's not about being oppressed from the outside. It's about being exhausted from the inside, from your own drives and the pressures you've internalized. This isn't the tiredness from physical labor. This is a soul-deep weariness, a burnout of the spirit. The real genius of psychopolitics is its subtlety. It doesn't oppress you directly. It co-opts your own desire for freedom and self-realization. It tells you to maximize your potential, to be productive, to be happy, but always in the framework of constant performance and market logic. So you feel both empowered and enslaved. You have infinite choices, right? But often those choices are pre-selected, nudging you towards predictable outcomes. And here's the hidden truth. This relentless drive for self-optimization alienates you from your authentic self. When every action is about external validation or chasing an idealized version of yourself, you lose touch with what truly nourishes you, what brings genuine joy, what aligns with your deepest values. You become a performer in your own life, always seeking applause from an unseen audience. That's how you end up with this profound emptiness, this feeling that despite all your effort, you're not really living. Think of your life like this. It's a massive, endlessly scrolling digital canvas. Every swipe, every click, every post is a brushstroke. You're both the artist and the painting. You're constantly adding, refining, seeking that perfect composition. But the canvas itself isn't yours to control. It's judged, analyzed, compared by an invisible, algorithmic curator. The pressure to make every stroke meaningful, impactful, and pleasing is overwhelming. You meticulously choose your colors, textures, themes, while the canvas's purpose, its very meaning, remains dictated by external forces you might not even grasp. You become so absorbed in painting for approval that you forget to ask why you're painting, or for whom. Is this canvas truly an expression of your inner landscape,
or just a reflection of what the curator deems valuable, what will get the most likes, the most shares. The danger? Becoming so focused on painting for external approval that you lose the ability to paint for yourself, to create art that speaks to your soul, regardless of the prevailing aesthetic. You risk becoming a technician of your own existence, crafting a facade that's admired, but ultimately hollow.
The psychological triggers here tap deep into our evolutionary need for belonging and our innate drive for meaning. That constant digital feedback loop, likes, comments, shares, it's a potent, albeit artificial, form of social reinforcement. Our brains are wired for approval and to avoid rejection, and the digital world is a master at exploiting this. Getting positive feedback online triggers dopamine, creating pleasure we associate with posting or engaging. This can morph into a compulsive need for more, a digital addiction that keeps us tethered. And then there's the comparison trap. Seeing those perfectly curated lives online fuels envy, inadequacy, and a distorted view of reality. This happens unconsciously, subtly shaping your self-esteem and aspirations. You start internalizing those online standards, believing your life is lacking if it doesn't measure up to those carefully constructed facades. This leads to that pervasive dissatisfaction, that feeling of always chasing something just out of reach. Take Anya, a graphic designer. Her online presence? Impeccably curated work, witty captions, a vibrant social life. But behind that polished facade, gnawing anxiety. She spends hours crafting posts, agonizing over filters, captions. The moment she hits publish, nervous anticipation, then relief, or disappointment if the engagement isn't high enough. This need for validation infects her work. She designs what she thinks will be popular, not what truly excites her. Her inner critic, amplified by the perceived judgment of her online audience, whispers that her unique ideas are too unconventional. The long-term cost? A slow erosion of her artistic integrity, a growing emptiness. She feels like she's constantly performing, never truly being. Does any of this resonate with the pressures you feel? That subtle urge to present a version of yourself that aligns with external expectations? Then there's David, a software engineer. Brilliant, but socially awkward. He finds solace in the structured world of coding. Online, he's cultivated a persona of effortless productivity, always learning. He diligently shares articles, participates in forums, posts about his coding projects, framing them all as breakthroughs. In reality, he struggles with procrastination and a deep fear of failure. He uses constant online activity to avoid confronting those underlying anxieties that stall his personal projects. The pressure to maintain this image of effortless productivity means he rarely admits setbacks or doubts, further isolating him. He believes vulnerability would be seen as weakness, cementing his fear of judgment. The devastating consequence? Stagnation in his personal growth. A life lived in the shadow of a carefully constructed digital facade, leaving him feeling increasingly disconnected from genuine human interaction and his own potential for authentic achievement. Do you ever find yourself using external activity as a shield against internal discomfort, a way to project an image that masks a deeper uncertainty? And then there's Sarah, a young mother. Her feeds are filled with smiling babies, perfect homes, cheerful updates. She feels immense pressure to project effortless motherhood, a stark contrast to the exhaustion, self-doubt, and sheer messiness she often experiences. When her baby has a difficult night or when she feels overwhelmed, she retreats into her phone, scrolling through the seemingly perfect lives of others. This only amplifies her feelings of inadequacy. She compares her struggles to the curated highlights of other mothers, leading to pervasive guilt, a feeling that she's failing her child. The long-term consequence? A deep well of unspoken anxiety, a profound sense of isolation. She believes her own reality is too imperfect to share. She's trapped in a cycle of comparison and self-recrimination, unable to connect with the shared humanity of the maternal experience. How often do we, like Sarah, allow the idealized narratives of others to cast a shadow over our own imperfect yet real experiences?
The immense, often hidden, cost of staying trapped in this pattern It's a profound depletion of your vital energy. It's the cost of authenticity sacrificed at the altar of external approval. It's the erosion of your intrinsic motivation, replaced by a desperate chase for fleeting digital validation. It's the loss of genuine connection as you prioritize curated performances over vulnerable presence. It's the quiet despair that arises from living a life designed for an audience rather than for yourself. This isn't just a psychological burden, it's a spiritual one. It's the slow dimming of that inner light that makes you uniquely you. The path to liberation from this psychopolitical grip isn't easy. It demands courage, introspection, and the willingness to shed carefully constructed identities. True freedom here isn't the absence of external pressures, but the internal capacity to stay grounded in your own truth, to act from a place of inner conviction, not external expectation. It's the strength to embrace imperfection, to acknowledge vulnerability, and to find meaning not in the applause of the crowd, but in the quiet resonance of your own soul. So, your first mission, cultivate intentional disconnection. Why? Because constant connectivity fragments your attention, preventing you from engaging deeply with yourself and your surroundings. Creating intentional space for introspection and focused thought reduces that constant pressure of external validation. Your action this week? Schedule specific periods where you completely disengage from digital devices. Resist the urge to check. Remind yourself of the long-term benefits for your mental and emotional well-being. Next, practice radical self-acceptance. Why? Because the constant exposure to idealized online personas fuels social comparison, breeding inadequacy and self-criticism. Radical self-acceptance means embracing all parts of yourself, including perceived flaws, without judgment. Your action? Consciously challenge negative self-talk. When you catch yourself being critical, reframe it with compassion. Instead of, "I'm so lazy for not finishing this," try, "I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, and it's okay to take a break." Finally, reclaim your narrative. Why? Because psychopolitics thrives on externally imposed stories about success, happiness, and identity. By actively reclaiming your own narrative, you assert your agency. Your action? Identify the stories you tell yourself about who you are. Are they truly yours or absorbed from external sources? Journal about your experiences, focusing on moments of growth and genuine joy, not just achievements. Actively seek out stories that resonate with your authentic self and use them to craft a new narrative. The difficulty of these practices isn't a sign of failure, it's a signal of growth. Each moment of resistance you overcome, each time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, each instance you reclaim your narrative, you're building resilience. You're strengthening that inner muscle that allows you to navigate modern life with greater authenticity and purpose. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about the courageous, ongoing journey of becoming more fully yourself. We've explored psychopolitics, that subtle system that turns your desires for self-realization into a constant pressure for performance and external validation. We've seen how it leads to a profound disconnect from your authentic self, leaving you feeling exhausted and unfulfilled. The choice before you is stark. Remain passive recipients of externally curated narratives, or become the conscious author of your own life, guided by inner truth and authentic connection. This isn't a destination, it's a continuous unfolding, a commitment to the ongoing exploration of what it truly means to live a meaningful life. What's one small, genuine truth you're willing to acknowledge about yourself today, away from the gaze of the digital world? Let me know in the comments.